Well, we're here in Europe, and Europe used to be a leader in the world of mobile. It was a leader 20 years ago when mobile was introduced and GSM. But it's not the case anymore. And the GSMA has just recently published a report, Navigant GSMA report, comparing wireless performance in the US and in Europe. And it's a sad story. Just three numbers or three stats from this. First of all, investment in wireless infrastructure has increased by 75% in the US in the past 5 years, and it's decreased in Europe. Second, in terms of 4G or LTE connections, in the US this year, by the end of this year, 20% of the connections will be LTE. In Europe, 2%. So not really that good. And in terms of speed, as a natural consequence, connections in the US are 75% faster than in Europe and will be 100% faster in the next 5 years. So not a pretty picture for Europe. I think the reason for this gap, this widening gap that we're seeing, is that the market structures are very different. Economies of scale in the US and fragmentation in Europe. Just AT&T and Verizon, two carriers in the US, are each larger than the three largest European operators combined. And in Europe, EU 28 now, since recently, we have more than 100 mobile network operators and more than 600 MVNOs. I mean, completely different things in terms of economies of scale. I think the rules to allocate spectrum policy are widely different as well. And clearly in the US, they favor harmonization and release of spectrum in line with network investment. In Europe, it's more complicated, I must say. And I think the third thing is that the whole regulatory framework in the US incensed investment and innovation and looks at this as a very dynamic market where there is innovation and investment, whereas Europe has been focusing, rightly but I think way too much, on a static interpretation of the market, looking at really lowering consumer prices. Well, first of all, I think it's a good idea, and it's a great idea to think about the single digital market, and we welcome that. We're all looking at jobs and innovation, and I think that's very good. The second thing is telecoms and mobile and ICT are really an enabler for economic growth and for a diversity of sectors, healthcare, financial services, transportation, etc. So for the mobile and telecoms industry to contribute to the digital single market, this needs to be a positive reform for the industry and positive overall, and we very much hope it will be the case. And the third thing is really, I think Europe is lagging behind in terms of investment in wireless and telecoms infrastructure. So the single digital market needs to incent investment and incent innovation, which Europe really needs. I think the reform that we're contemplating, discussing for Europe needs to do a number of things, and very briefly I'll mention four, then I'll talk about what the private sector has to do, of course. I think the regulatory reform first and foremost needs to look at spectrum. Spectrum needs to be allocated to the industry in a harmonized way. The GSMA just published a report showing the important contribution that mobile makes today to the economy in Europe and the increased contribution it can make tomorrow if the right amounts of spectrum are released. So spectrum, very big. The second thing is, I think the regulatory framework needs to be really pushing towards facilitating, enabling, supporting investment. I think that's really important. The third thing, I think it needs to be consistent. It needs to be consistent across the 28 European member states. That's the first level. And it needs to be consistent for all service providers. So if you're providing a service, whether or not you're a regulated incumbent telco player or an innovative internet company, you should have the same regulatory framework. And the fourth area is I think we need to have a policy and a regulatory framework that enables consolidation. I've said that in the US and Europe, we have very different economies of scale versus fragmentation. I think we need to look at the regulatory framework from the perspective of a dynamic, innovative market that needs to invest versus a short-term only look at price impact in the next couple of months. So consolidation should be enabled. Those are the four things, I think, from a regulatory perspective: spectrum, incenting investment, consistent rules, and enabling consolidation. That's for regulation. Now, I think the private sector needs to do a lot to make Europe and the European market a stronger place. And mobile network operators are very keen to do that. They will do this either despite a difficult regulatory environment, which would be a shame, or they will do that by being helped with the regulatory environment, and I very much hope this would be the case. I think it's a fantastic event, GSR. We, the GSMA, have been working with the ITU over the years to support this forum. We're very happy to see that it's very successful this year. It's so important to share best practices, new developments in the sector, and you can do that by sharing information across countries, but also by looking at the new things and the new technological developments, ideas, etc. So we very much at the GSMA support that and look forward to continuing to work with the ITU on the GSR.